Well, Black Friday is over. And keeping up with tradition, chaos erupted in some Walmarts. One man died after getting into a conflict with employees. The Georgia man, 40-year-old Vital Calloway, was allegedly shoplifting when he was confronted. Here's part of the local news coverage.
According to a police report obtained by Channel 2 Action News, an employee put the man in a chokehold while detaining him for allegedly stealing 2 DVD players. The responding officer arrived and found the Walmart employees on top of him. The report states that the officer cuffed the accused shoplifter, but realized he wasn't resisting at all.
He was a good person, but he just had a problem with drugs. That's just what it was. He had a problem with drugs. He wasn't hurt. He wouldn't hurt anybody.
Calloway believes her husband's drug problem was what led to the alleged shoplifting.
Meanwhile, the battle between workers and the country's largest retailer continues. This after workers in Walmarts across the country took part in a Black Friday strike. They were protesting low wages and poor working conditions, but Walmart stands behind their policies and reports one of the best Black Friday turnouts ever. So is there a cost to the rock bottom prices Walmart boasts? To discuss in more detail, I'm joined now by Chris Hicks, a campaign organizer at Jobs for Justice, Josh Edelson, Salon.com contributor and labor journalist, and also J.D. Tuccilli, managing editor for Reason 24/7 News. Welcome, gentlemen. So, Josh, I'm going to start with you. Walmart is downplaying the protests, saying now they're touting that they had great profits. How the protests accomplish anything?
Absolutely. So we've seen two very different messages from Walmart. In public, from the beginning, they've been dismissing strikes as stunts, dismissing the workers as a fringe. Meanwhile, behind closed doors, they've been paying workers to sit in mandatory meetings and be lectured to about why they shouldn't participate, why they shouldn't get involved in the labor group Our Walmart, why they shouldn't go out on strike. What happened is that we saw 500 some workers, according to organizers, go on strike anyway, despite Walmart publicly saying they could face consequences. Anywhere in the world that you see people take a very risky action that could result in a risk to their job, to themselves, either you have to say all of those people are crazy, or it demonstrates a discontent that's shared by many more people. And what these workers did, which has never happened up until last month, coordinated strikes at Walmart stores in the U.S., has never happened as big as it happened on Black Friday, is significant because it's part of a larger strike wave that's going to continue.
Now, Chris, I know that you played a role in organizing some of these protests and even participated in 4 of them, you said, yourself on Black Friday. Can you talk about your observations and whether or not you think the protests were effective?
I mean, I definitely think they're effective just because it's really changing the dialogue around workers' rights and how Walmart impacts not just their bottom line and those workers, but the entire industry of these logistics companies. Like, Walmart sets trends that everyone follows, whether it be a grocery store or Target. So when workers are speaking up, it's being heard across the country, which is why there were over 1,000 actions on Black Friday. And while Walmart's downplaying the importance of this, I think everything Josh said is completely right. We're actually seeing a new America coming awake in this time period where it's coming off the heels of Occupy Wall Street, off the heels of what happened in Madison. So workers are really willing to stand up and use their voice.
But Walmart is touting record profits. They're saying they had a great Black Friday. So do you think that the management there is being phased at all or being encouraged to change their ways?
Well, I mean, it's definitely getting to them. And in terms of quarter profits, we're not going to see how that really shakes out for a few more weeks. So that's just a talking point that they've really been pushing. And they've also said only 50 workers went on strike when we can actually track and show the numbers were much higher. So the fact we're getting responses from them and that they're having to come out and defend their practices shows that they are listening.
All right, JD, I want to bring you there into the conversation. I want to ask you what you think about the protests across the country and how effective you think that they've been.
With all due respect to Josh and Chris, the headlines this week are that Walmart was essentially unaffected, that Black Friday wasn't touched by these protests. I'm not going to minimize the complaints of these workers. They may well have valid reasons for being dissatisfied, those who did walk out. But a very small percentage of Walmart's overall employees participated in any protests. And overall, the takeaway from this is that the protests were a failure.
you know, the ones that did come out and protest, they are protesting poor working conditions. They are protesting low wages. JD, I want to ask you, Walmart, I guess they definitely don't offer competitive wages, but in the retail industry, is it really that much lower?
Well, for the retail industry, they're about average. I mean, if you're talking about great wages, no. They're not offering terrible wages for their industry either. They're pretty competitive overall. Compared to mom and pop stores, which a lot of people might tend to prefer, at least in some circumstances, they pay better and they offer better benefits simply because they have the advantage of the scale that they offer.
Now, Josh, you just heard there from JD that they pay average wages, and you know what some people are saying is, you know, if you don't like working there and you're not happy there, why don't you go and work somewhere else? It's a free country, right?
So you could have said the same thing to people working in garment sweatshops in the U.S. 100 years ago. You could have said it to people working in the auto industry in the 1930s. Walmart's wages, I mean, according to IBISWorld, they're less than $9 an hour on average. They may not be starkly different from the average in the industry, but it's an industry that Walmart has created. Walmart has driven the entire industry in this direction. There are other holdouts like Costco, but they've dragged even unionized companies down in terms of the wages. And so we're talking about a strike, not just about a particular company, but against the dominant player in our economy. It doesn't have to be that way. Demos has a great report arguing that, in fact, you can have low prices without having such low wages. But what we're seeing here is that Walmart exerts an influence not just on the 1% of U.S. workers that work directly for Walmart, but on its suppliers, on its contractors, and on its competitors. And those wages are wages that leave workers I've talked to in the position of saying, well, this week I got my paycheck, so I'll lend money to you, and next week you get your paycheck, you'll lend money back to me, and each of us will have to decide each day whether we can afford to pay for lunch. That is not something that's necessary in order to have low prices or in order to have an effective economy.
Now, despite all this, Josh, excuse me, these people Walmart does employ a lot of people. So wouldn't it be better off for all those involved, at least for the time being, to have them employed instead of these workers being out of work?
Well, the workers that went on strike, I talked to several of them who said, I've made a choice not to leave. I've made a choice not to go somewhere else because we are living in a Walmart economy, whether or not you work for Walmart. They've made a choice to stay and fight to change the job there. So the question is not whether or not 1.4 million people should exit Walmart. The question is people's willingness to use their voice. And what's up for debate here is not just how much Walmart should pay, whether in fact you should have to be in poverty to work there. The question is also who gets to be part of determining Walmart's business model? Who gets to decide whether Walmart should take a portion of its profits, as it could, entirely from its profits and raise everybody's wages, for example, as Demos argues, to $12 an hour? Because historically, when workers have tried to participate in that process, when they've tried to organize, whether it's to form a union or to organize in a different way, as they are now with union support, workers have faced retaliation. And so this is a question not just about poverty, but about democracy also. Should workers get together and pressure the company to raise the wage floor without the response of having their hours cut or being faced with losing their job?
Okay. JD, I'm going to direct this next question to you because Josh there was talking about raising the wages. What do you think that would do? Do you think that would cause Walmart? Would that make it so that they have to raise the prices? And in that case, as we know, many people, low-income people, shop at Walmart because the prices there are much lower. So would the consumer ultimately suffer?
Well, quite likely, yes. Now, it's not necessarily to rule out giving the workers higher wages. There's nothing wrong with the workers unionizing, seeking better conditions, although we should know that they haven't. Unions have been trying to get Walmart for years, and yes, Walmart obviously doesn't want them in there. But the workers have chosen over a course of years not to unionize. They have the right to, and if they have grievances, and I'm sure that some of them do, they should try to settle those. But yes, if labor costs go up, that's a major cost for Walmart. That's going to come out in the wash someplace. Walmart's big competitive advantage in the market is low prices. That's what they advertise. That's what everyone knows them for. those low prices probably won't be so low if a major cost component for Walmart has to go up.
All right, Chris, I mean, what do you think? What do you think Walmart needs to change? And can they make those changes and keep those prices that attracts their customers? Can that all happen at once?
It definitely can. Walmart's so big and there's so much profits in it. And the Walton family owns the same amount of 42% of wealth, the bottom part of the country, those 6 people own. Like, the money is there, and we live in this Walmart economy because they hold this money and they hold our economy hostage by setting these trends. Like everything that's been discussed, Walmart could easily change its practices and lift everyone in the economy up. And it would only cost 42 cents for every customer's trip in order for these workers to make $12 an hour. That's
All
what
right,
reports have found.
JD, what do you think? The Walmart family, the Waltons, they're rich. They're raking in the dough. Should they share a piece of that pie with their employees?
Well, rich, yes, they are, but rich only goes so far. You could confiscate the Walton families. I think you'd be able to raise every employee's hourly wage by $1. Of course, if you did that, the company would cease to exist too, because the Waltons have no reason to keep it going. Wealthy people do exist; they make their money, but it's not as if they have a huge pie that you can simply divide and make everybody in the country wealthier. These companies exist, like Walmart, to sell to customers, to provide something. What Walmart offers is a retail experience with low prices. The low prices, come with a cost. I mean, it's they have to keep the cost down low too.
All right.
As we've discussed, their labor costs aren't that high.
All right. Interesting debate, and appreciate you, the 3 of you, for taking part in it. That was Chris Hicks, a campaign organizer at Jobs for Justice; Josh Idelson, Salon.com contributor and labor journalist; and also JD Tuccille, managing editor for Reason 24/7 News.